The vaunted Climate Research Unit of the United Kingdom has misplaced some 25 years' worth of critical weather station data. Professor Phil Jones, director of the Climate Research Unit, can't find the data. The Global Climate Dataset was the most cited surface temperature record by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The raw data was only seen by hand-picked researchers. Yet the raw data was closely guarded by the Climate Research Unit. In 2004, Professor Jones told an Australian climate scientist, quote, "Even if WMO agrees, I will still not pass on the data. We have 25 or so years invested in the work. Why should I make the data available to you when your aim is to try and find something wrong with it?" The WMO is the United Nations World Meteorological Organization. In 2007, in response to Freedom of Information Act requests, CRU initially said it didn't have to fulfill the requests because, quote, "information accessible to applicant via other means some information is publicly available on external websites." Now the CRU is citing confidentiality agreements with Denmark, Spain, Bahrain, and the Met Office. Others may exist, CRU says in a statement, but it might have lost them because it moved offices, or they were made verbally, and nobody at the CRU wrote them down. As for the raw station data, quote, "We are not in a position to supply data for a particular country not covered by the example agreements referred to earlier, as we have never had sufficient resources to keep track of the exact source of each individual monthly value." Quote, "Since the 1980s we have merged the data we have received into existing series or begun new ones, so it is impossible to say if all stations within a particular country or if all of an individual record should be freely available." End quote. Quote, "Data storage availability in the 1980s meant that we were not able to keep the multiple sources for some sites, only the station series after adjustment for homogeneity issues." Steve McIntyre, who self-financed climateaudit.org and has asked to see the raw data for years, noted, quote, "I was around in the 1980s and the 1970s. People used filing cabinets back then. You'd have alphabetically arranged files by customer. If you got a paper from Andorra or Zambia, you'd put the data in the Andorra or Zambia file. If a decision were made on the handling of an account, you'd put a memo in the file. How is it possible that they don't have any documentation on the construction of their data? This is getting worse and worse." Canadian scientists Stephen McIntyre and Ross McKittrick uncovered a fundamental mathematical flaw in the computer program that was used to produce the misleading, quote, "hockey stick," end quote, graph, which Al Gore trumpeted in his movie An Inconvenient Truth. This story was adapted from Andrew Orlowski's 13 August 2009 article titled "Global Warming Ate My Data" at www.theregister.co.uk. And please remember, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change does not conduct any research, nor does it monitor climate-related data or parameters.